Hey guys, Dr. Michael Young here. Hope everything is going great in your world today. I am back in my makeshift recording studio in downtown Fraser's Bottom, West Virginia. Nice day today, really nice day today. I really would like to be outside instead of making this video, if I'm going to be totally honest. But this is how dedicated I am. We got to push ahead. Today we're talking about Chapter 12. This is our Module 11. Talking about Chapter 12. We're talking about power, influence, and politics. So let's dig right into it. Power. Power is the ability to get people to do something that, they may want to do it or they may not want to do it. But we've got an official definition here. It's the ability to marshal human information and other resources to get something done. It's concerned with providing influence to others. Usually when I'm talking about this topic, I like to think of my power as the professor of this class. What can I do to get you to study hard? Well, there are 5 bases of power. Power comes from 5 different sources or 5 different bases. There's legitimate power. That's the legitimacy that comes from the position itself. So, for example, if a person is a policeman, they have power. If a person is a judge, they have power. If a person is a professor, they have power. If a person is a teacher, they have power. This power is bestowed upon them just simply by society, and it originates from the position. There's reward power. As a professor, I can reward students with extra credit, for example, or letting them out of class early if we were meeting. There is coercive power. This is kind of the flip side of reward power. You can threaten. You can have punishments and so forth, and coerce people. If you don't do something, you're going to, rather than get rewarded, you might actually get a punishment. I might give you an extra assignment if you don't do well on, say, the exam. There's expert power. This is the power that simply comes from people realizing that you know a lot about a particular topic. I like to think that I know a lot about management, especially international management. Hopefully the fact that I'm at least somewhat knowledgeable about the area can get people to listen to me and to actually study and do what I say in terms of, again, the limited power that I have. And then there's referent power. Referent power is the personality, the charisma. The person somehow is able to convince you that they have the right ideas and they have a vision. It might also be the likability. And so these are the 5 bases of where power comes from. Power might be more or less effective. The basis of power and effectiveness. In general, different bases of power affect important outcomes such as performance, job satisfaction, and turnover. Studies show that expert and referent power, those that are more voluntary, right, for the person in which the power is being put into effect, generally have a positive effect. Reward and legitimate power supposedly have a slightly positive effect, and of course, coercive power has a negative effect. Whoops, went too far. Went too far. Let me go back up. Empowerment, power sharing, and empowerment. I like to think that as a teacher, if I can get students to take responsibility for their own education, that's the highest level of empowerment that I could possibly bestow. Because ultimately for students, it doesn't depend on me. Some students see this right away and others don't. But basically grades and so forth and all of this stuff these are used to get you to do things. But if you are intrinsically motivated and you realize that education is something that benefits you and has lifelong benefits, and you take responsibility for your own education, that's a process of empowerment in the case of education. So empowerment means sharing of power. It's efforts to enhance employee performance, well-being, and positive attitudes by giving employees greater influence, use of centralized management practices, and it means transfer of powers to employees or students, and through enhancing self-efficacy and intrinsic motivation. We've got a stair-step model here that talks about the evolution of power from domination to delegation. This is lower level. This is the degree of empowerment being low, management style being domination, authoritarian power, must do what I say. This would be almost a master-slave type of relationship. As we're moving up a little bit on the stair step, if we have more of a consultative management style and a little bit higher degree of empowerment, this is influence sharing. Moving on up, if we have a participatory style and even more empowerment, we would have power sharing. And finally, last but not least, if we have very high levels of delegation and very high levels of empowerment, we have what we call power distribution. Followers are granted authority to make decisions. All right, so this is the least, and this is the most. And down here we've got degree of empowerment. Here, management style. Moving in this direction is more and more and more empowerment. Perhaps you're beginning to see a theme of some of our lessons. Psychological empowerment. This kind of goes along with what we might call self-actualization, maybe intrinsic motivation, an absence of fear, a feeling of making a contribution as opposed to running away from things. But anyway, psychological empowerment occurs when we get a sense of meaning from our work. We have competence and confidence. This looks like it should be confidence in our ability to perform, self-determination. We have a little bit of degree over how we perform our jobs. And we believe that our work is making a difference. And when we influence others, we can use soft tactics. These were more of rational persuasion, inspirational appeals, consultation, ingratiation, personal appeals, as opposed to hard tactics, exchange, coalition, pressure, legitimizing. These are more hard tactics in influencing others. You want to use the tactics that are best suited towards the outcome that you're trying to achieve. You want to rely on the core. You want to be believable and trustworthy. You'd prefer to be consultative rather than legitimacy. As a professor, I would rather try to convince students than try to say, listen, I'm the professor, you must do what I say. Don't try to ingratiate yourself or try to flatter or schmooze other people. Be a bit more subtle rather than say, obvious. And these types of things can be learned. You need to learn how to influence other people. This is why having sales jobs early on in your career can be very, very beneficial, because you'll use the techniques that you learn in a sales job in other parts of your career. 6 principles of persuasion: liking, reciprocity, social proof, consistency, authority, scarcity. You need to use each of these principles in combination for maximum effectiveness. Next thing we're going to talk about is politics. Politics is something that is it's a necessary evil. It can't be avoided. We each have to engage in politics, whether we want to or not. Trying to stay on the fence politically it's impossible. It's really impossible, at least in my experience. Some people are able to somewhat avoid politics, but it's really, really difficult. And all organizations have politics, and some organizations are more political than others. We've got a definition: organizational politics. These are intentional acts to influence, to enhance, to protect the self-interests of individual groups that are not endorsed by or aligned with those of the organization. Some, and even within organizations, you have different factions. So these factions, some of them might be more powerful, some of them less powerful. It's been my experience that when I go into an organization, I can sometimes avoid politics, at least at first. Depending on the job and depending on what it is you're expected to achieve. But after you're there for a while, you just about have to align yourself with one faction or another. It's impossible to really sit on the fence. What causes political behavior? Organizational justice or lack of organizational justice. Trust in coworkers, or the flip side, lack of trust in coworkers. And then finally, possible negative effect. It may seem that organizational politics is getting worse, and it may very likely be because there's an awful lot of uncertainty in the world at the moment, partly caused by the pandemic, which partly caused by the economic situation and the inflation. Inflation creates uncertainty. And then also the Russian invasion of Ukraine. All of these things have created a lot of uncertainty. And studies show that uncertainty triggers political behaviors. People become less trusting of others when, resource scarcity in particular. Whenever things become uncertain, then there's a scramble and it triggers more political behavior than normally would be. So some of the sources of uncertainty are unclear objectives. This is for the organization. Vague performance measures, ill-defined decision processes, strong individual or group competition, and any type of change. All of these things are factors that might cause uncertainty, which in turn might cause more political behavior. The types of political tactics often used are building a network of useful contacts, using key players to support initiative, making friends with power brokers, bending the rules to fit the situation, maybe promoting yourself, creating a favorable image, and praising others, attacking or blaming others, and using information as a political tool. These are all frequently used political tactics. So, as I mentioned myself, I think a lot of people will say this, that they don't like politics. A lot of people actually mean it. Some people say they don't like politics, but they're very political animals. And then some people actually enjoy politics. Me, it's a necessary evil. You've got to be involved in politics. Any organization where you have different people that are striving they have different ideas and trying to achieve something, politics is going to come up. And so I've changed. I used to say, listen, I try to avoid politics, don't do politics, but now anymore, I'm just like, hey, I'm going to do whatever it takes to achieve my agenda and make sure my ideas are felt. That means making friends with the right people, avoiding the wrong people. So how political should you be? People that are highly political run the risk of being called self-serving. They may lose credibility, may be considered poor team players. But people who are strictly non-political, slower promotions, may feel left out, may be considered poor team players as well. And not only that, but it makes it harder for you to achieve what you want to achieve. For example, here at West Virginia State University, I'm an associate professor. I don't like politics, but I have to be involved in politics because, I've been teaching for a long time and I have some certain ideas about the way that things should be done. And so I'm going to express my opinions, and I'm going to try to attach myself to like-minded individuals that do what we think is best for the students. So that means I have to be political, so be it. People might not like me, but that's just the way it goes. Impression management. This is a hot topic in management research. back when I was doing my PhD some 20 years ago, there was a young woman there that was doing her PhD in impression management. This is where you try to create an impression or project an impression on others. We're calling it, and we all do it, whether we realize it or not, with everybody. Attempt to control or manipulate the images related to a person, organization, or idea using speech, behavior, and appearance. How do you make a good impression? Set an intention. Consider your ornaments. Remember, your body speaks. Bust bad moods and bad days. Be interested. To be interesting. Yeah. Have you ever talked with somebody and they only want to talk about themselves? That's a bore, right? You've got to listen to others and not just fake it, but you actually have to listen and let them know, with some sincerity. This is being a good listener as opposed to being just talking about yourself. Impression management tactics, favorable upward impression management tactics. Moderate amount of upward impression management is a necessity for the average employee today. Stay job focused, stay supervisor focused, stay self-focused. All right, guys, that's it. We are finished for this topic for today. Hey, it's me again. This is Dr. Michael Young saying, stay awesome, and see you next time.